are learning together for ourselves as part of Project Likutei Sichos. Today, we are doing the Sicha on Elul from Chelek Yutes. And we are learning, as we do each week, in the Schos of Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak ben Sima Chasya and Masha Bas Batsheva. They should both have a refuah shalema kreva miyat. This is a very short sicha, so we're going to be doing a lot of the footnotes today. And it's a kind of iconic sicha. People who were there when it was first given over to us, and in general, people who are familiar with the Rebbe's Torah, this is kind of like, oh yeah, this is an iconic sicha. And I'm sure we're all going to enjoy tremendously. Aleph. Ba'achas misichos Chag HaPesach. One of the sichos said on Pesach, Mitayar Chayk Meri Chami Admar as Hamatzav Haruchani Shesharar B'Shabbos Mevarchim Elul Bilabavich. So the Rebbe says, in one of the sichos that he gave on Pesach, describes the spiritual energy that pervaded in Lubavitch on Shabbos Mevarchim Elul, which we just experienced. And what was Lubavitch? Lubavitch was Ir Habira. It was the capital city, Shel Admei Chabad B'meshech Shanim Rabbis. It was a capital city. It was the place where many of the Chabad rabbis lived throughout many years. Ve'elu Devorav. And now the Rebbe cites one paragraph from that sicha that the Frierdiker Rebbe said on Chag HaPesach, when he described the spiritual atmosphere and ambiance and energy that pervaded in Lubavitch on Shabbos Mevarchim Elul. And these are the words from that sicha. B'Shabbos Mevarchim Elul b'Lubavitch, Shabbos Mevarchim Elul in the city of Lubavitch, Hagam Shadayin Hayazeh Yoim Bohir Shaboy Zorch HaShemesh. Although it was still a luminous and sunny day, Haresha Avir Kvar Hischalif, but the temperature was already turning. Avir literally means ear, but here it means like the temperature was already turning. Reichai shel Elul hechol kvar liyos morgash. Literally, this means the smell of Elul already began to be sensed, to be felt. Kvar nashva ruach shel tshuva, and the wind of tshuva already began to blow. So I guess, ladies, this is, the summer is a sweet spot where it's not Erev Pesach and it's not Erev the Yom Tovim, but we're moving from there. In another few days, it'll be Shabbos and Sunday, it'll be Rosh Chodesh Elul. And so in Lubavitch, from Shabbos Mevarchim Elul, although it may have been a very sunny, warm, balmy summer day, but you could sense that the temp was already changing. You could already smell the smell of Elul. You could already feel the winds of tshuva blowing. Now the Rebbe says, "Kol divrei Rebbe Seinu Nasiinu miduyakim heim l'chol protehim." Everything that a Rebbe, that a Nasi says, is very, very exact in all of its details. Move on, and therefore it's understood. So therefore, the four different descriptions of Shabbos Mevarchim Elul that are described in this sicha, and here he delineates them again. Ar Hashemesh Haba here, the warmth of the sun that illuminated. Chiluf Ha'avir. The second thing is that the temperature was kind of already turning. Gimel, the third is Hargashas Hareach Shel Elul. You could sense the smell of Elul. And finally, Ruach HaTshuva Shenashva, the wind of Tshuva that was already blowing. Einam Militzos Ba'alma. These are not merely expressions. Elohim Arba Inyanim Hamivatim Es HaTeichen HaPnimi Shel Shabbos Mevarchim Elul. But rather, they are four inyanim, four concepts that express the innermost content of Shabbos Mevarchim Elul. And so the Sicha explains to us how these four descriptions of Shabbos Mevarchim Elul are seminal to understanding what happens during Elul. Yisera Mizu, but before the Rebbe does it, he says even more. Divrei Rabbeinu Nesienu B'diyakim Hein Loi Rak B'Teichnom Elagam Bizman Amirasam. The words of our Rabbeim, our Nesiim, are not just exact and specific in terms of their content, but it's also exact and specific in terms of when these words are said. Hainu, this means Shekol Inyan Nemar Bizman Hamatim V'Hashayach Elav. Everything that a Rebbe, that a Nasi says, is said only in the time that is appropriate and that is relevant for the content that is being imparted. Afal pi and in parentheses, the Rebbe says, although obviously, and it has to be in such a way that the hashpa that's given at any time also is relevant and pervades at other times, but nevertheless, when those words are said, is very specific and very relevant. The Kevan Shadivrei Chami Admor Edes Toyar Shabbos Mevorchim Elul Nemru B'Chag HaPesach. And because my father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe, described Shabbos Mevorchim on Pesach, move on Sheyeshna Shaychus Pnimis Ben Shnei Hazmanim. So therefore, it's understood there has to be an innermost connection between Elul and Pesach, even if it's not immediately apparent. And not only is it not immediately apparent, but the Rebbe says, it would seem that the connection between these two times, the correlation between these two times, is not understood at all. These two times, Shabbos Mevorchim Elul on one hand and Pesach on the other, it's not just that they're different from each other in their content and in their general idea, but actually they're diametrically opposed to one another. Why? Because in Yanei Shel Pesach hu hamshacha mimayla lemata. Because Pesach is all about a spiritual effluence that comes from above to below. Tchila deidi li. First, my beloved makes an overture towards me. Okay, like we say in the Haggadah, that the Eibishter kind of swooped down and took us out. And only afterwards did we make a reciprocal overture. Ukiyadua, as is known, Shahagula Ditias Mitzrayim. The Geula from Mitzrayim was beferish not because of our avodah, because of our spiritual service. In parentheses, the Rebbe says, Shari Adarabim, on the contrary, Koidim Yitzias Mitzrayim, Hayu b'matzav dehalalu avodah zarah v'halalu v'chulu. Before they left Mitzrayim, Bnei Yisrael were in such a lowly spiritual state that the Medrash tells us, the Malachim said to Hashem, why are you causing the Egyptians to be drowned in the river, and you're allowing the Jews to cross over on dry land when both of these demographics, both of these cohorts are Ovdei Avodah Zarah? They both serve idols. So what accounts for your discrepancy in how you treat them? The Eibishter said to Malachim, you have to be quiet. This is my business. But the fact is that, and this is only 1/5 of Bnei Yisrael, right? Because the rest stayed. They were not zeichet to leave. They had blended into the society, or they died during Makas Choshech. So this was already the creme de la creme. And even about these people, the Malachim were able to say they're Ovdei Avodah Zarah and the Mitzrayim are Ovdei Avodah Zarah. And please, let's look at footnote number 5. The Rebbe says, the Rebbe explains that it's not only that the way in which the Eibishter swooped down to take Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, which is loy al yedei malach, v'loy al yedei saraf, right? V'loy al yedei shaliach. We say in the Haggadah that the Eibishter did not send a proxy, did not deputize any other force to do this, But with his own honor, with his own glory, with his own essence, Abishah took us out of Egypt. So not only is it not possible, not only is it not possible for Jews to pull on the essence of Hashem through our avodah, because no matter how arduous might be the avodah, but no avodah of a created being can reach this essential aspect of the Eibishter. But Rebbe says, but on top of it, there was no avodah among them. Ki halalu, like the Malachim said, because they're avodah zara. So it's not even in the discussion. It's not even on the table to talk about spiritual avodah. Much less so to reach the level of bechvayde ba'atzmai. So this is all to underscore that Pesach is all about doidi li. My beloved is to me. The Eibishter made the first move. The Eibishter's overture is the first move. So it's el b'derech esrusa de la'ela. Pesach is all about an arousal from above. She'oira es ha'isarusa de latata etzel b'nei Yisrael. And it was only after there was this isarusa de la'ela, this overture from above, that it aroused a reciprocal overture from below. Ve'ilu chaydesh elul. But chaydesh elul, in sharp contradistinction, whose man ha'avoida ba'ofen shel memata l'mayla. But Elul is famously all about the avodah from below upwards. Tchila ani l'doiti, and note that the Rebbe is underscoring the Aleph and the Lamed. He wants to remind us that the words of this pasuk are one of the many acrostics for Chodesh Elul. First is ani l'doiti, I am to my beloved, isarusa dilatata, an overture from below, va'achar kach, and only afterwards, isarusa dila'ela, is there the overture from above, vidoidi li, and my beloved is to me. And Rashi Tevis Elul. Bitzarach lahavin. So once we understand this, we have to, once we understand the difference between Elul and Pesach, so we have to understand Ma makom yesh levar bisman haPesach as ha'inin de Shabbos mevarchem Elul. Why would the Frierdiker Rebbe choose to explain the inin of Shabbos mevarchem Elul on Pesach? It seems interesting, if not bizarre. Just seems out of place. Seif Beis Ubira Indian, and the explanation for this concept is as follows: Yadua, it is well known, Kemaimer Razal, like our sages teach us, ala pasuk, on the pasuk from Eov, mi hiktemani va'ashalem. Hashem says, who has ever come to meet me, who has ever come to serve me, who has ever done anything for me that I have not already paid for, that I have not already compensated them for. In other words, we think that we're so good, we're so frum, we're so religious, we're so Hasidish, we're so wonderful, we're so magnanimous, we're so amazing. But the Eibishter says, I've already paid you for this. You have me on retainer. I've given you already for this. So based on this, everything that a person is able to acquire or able to reach through his own havodah, it's only because of the koyach that we are given from above. In other words, doing anything positive is a privilege. It's a gift. We're only able to do it because of the koyach that we were given from above. And it's only after we get this overture from above, only then are we able to do our work in a way of an overture from below. Meaning, and the Rebbe is going to explain this, much more comprehensively, that really everything that is isarusa dilatata is already seated in, sourced in, an isarusa dila'ela. So The Rebbe is going to explain that there's different levels of Isarusa Dilatata. But on some level, there really is no such thing as a Isarusa Dilatata, essentially, because everything that we do below is already reciprocating to something that came from above. The very koyach to engage in Isarusa Dilatata is something given to us from above. But like the Alter Rebbe explains, Elul, whose man, his galus, Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, that Elul is the time that the 13 attributes of mercy are revealed. Umevi al kach, and Alter Rebbe brings to explain this the famous mashal Mimelech shenimtza basada, that the king is in the field. She'az rashai kol haroitz l'tzeis l'sham u'lekabel pnei hamelech b'chulei. And because the king is in the field, everybody has permission to go out and meet the king. So it's true that it's your move to go out to meet the king. But the permission is granted from above. So your Isarusa Dilatata is really already reciprocating to the Isarusa Dila'ela of the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim that are revealed during this time. This means, even though generally speaking, we say that Elul is the paradigm of the work that begins below and goes upwards. Yes, that's true. But that Elul is saturated with the energy of overture from below. But still in all, but the Isarusa Dilatata necessitates the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, which basically open the door and give us permission from above. And only after the Eibishter puts the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim into the public domain, as it were, and the Melech is Basadeh, then starts the work of Ani L'Doiti. We'll move on, and it's understood, the Rebbe says, Sheitzarusa Dila'ela Hanimsheches La'acharei Va'al Yedei Isarusa Dilatata, that the Isarusa Dila'ela, that the effluence from above that comes through our overture from below, through our Isarusa Dilatata, is much more elevated than the original Isarusa Dila'ela that prompted the Isarusa Dilatata. Okay, so it's a cycle. It's a self-feeding cycle. It's a biofeedback. Okay, so there's Isarusa Dila'ela that prompts Isarusa Dilatata, and that Isarusa Dilatata prompts a much more exalted Isarusa Dila'ela than the original one that prompted Isarusa Dilatata. The Kavan. Why is this true? Why is it true that only after the Isarusa Dilatata can there be a higher level of Isarusa Dila'ela? The Kavan, this is because Isarusa Dila'ela zu hakedemis ba b'derech chesed chinam. Because the original Isarusa Dila'ela, the catalyst for the Isarusa Dilatata, comes as a freebie. It comes as chesed chinam. It's kindness that we did not earn. Memela harehi hamshacha rak michitzonius haor. Therefore, it's an effluence that comes from a more external aspect of Hashem's light. Masha Inkein, in contradistinction, hamshachas hesarusa dila'ela sh'al yedei ha'avoda. But the downpour of the Isarusa Dila'ela that reciprocates to our Isarusa Dilatata, that comes as a result of our work below, this comes, and this is quoting a pasuk in Eob, the Eibusha says, I desire for the work of your hands. In other words, when we put in the effort, we are meeting a desire that Hashem has. And we are therefore awakening a more internal aspect. And therefore, of necessity, this arouses an aspect of the inner light of Hashem. Move on. And at the same time, we understand that the koyach that our overture has to arouse this higher level of effluence from the Eibishter, its original source is in God's effluence that prompted our reciprocal overture. So again, it's a cycle. Isarusa de la Ela, which prompts an Isarusa de la Tata, which prompts a deeper Isarusa de la Ela.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah. I don't know why I don't hear loud enough.
Oh.
Okay, now I'm hearing.
Are we talking in any way about the idea of why the world is created, chesed versus dir v'tachtonim?
I don't think so, but that's because I haven't thought about it. You just asked me the question. I would have to think.
It sounds like the first.
Yeah. I think you're always a few steps ahead of me. Yeah, I understand what you're saying now. That the Eibusha created the world. That's chesed chinam. We didn't ask for that, and that was the Eibusha's like gift to us, right? Then the Eibusha says, "L'maisi yadecha tichseif." I desire your work. So that's the avodah of dir lo yisbar b'tachtonim, which prompts the ultimate Yisroel del Eila, which is the Skalos of Mashiach.
Right, but isn't it like just a little bit disturbing to say that the initial starting point was chesed? Not disturbing.
Eilam chesed yibana. That's like a that is like the beginning of everything.
Okay.
I think. I don't know, but I have to think more.
Rivky, can I say something?
Let's look at footnote 13. So we're going back to, if you print it out from the project in the Hebrew, it's on top of page 159. So the Rebbe says that our work is only prompted, the Eibusher prompts our work with Doidi Li, with the original Sarusa del Ela, and then comes our work. So footnote 13. The Gam HaTekiah b'Shofar sheB'Chodesh Elul. And the tekiah in the shofar, the blowing of the shofar, which would seem to be, right, we're blowing in the shofar. So it seems like it's a rusa de la tata. The Rebbe says, Hu inyan is a rusa de la ela. This too is a concept of overture and arousal from above. Share in Yanahu, because the inyan of blowing the shofar, Kamesha Kasov, and we know, I think it's the Rambam that gave 10 reasons for why the shofar is blown every day during Rosh Chodesh, during Elul, except for Erev Rosh Hashanah. And most famously, quoting Amos, the Navi Amos, Im yitaka shofar be'ir va'am lo yichradu. It's a rhetorical question. Can the shofar be blown in a city and the nation will not tremble? So it would seem that it's a rusa dilatata. But Amai says, Im yitaka shofar, will the shofar be blown? And Diyesh Leimar, the Rebbe says, we might say, Asher perish yitaka, hu shahatakia ba milmaila, v'lo sha'am toikin. We might be able to understand the words of Amais, hayitaka, will a shofar be blown on a deeper level? That this is a shofar that's blown milmaila, above. The rak asher hamshachas hatekiah shemilmaila he al yidei hatekiah she'anu taken. And the shofar that is blown above is brought down, is nimshach through the tekiyahs that are blown in this world. Ure'ei l'kuti diburim sham. And the Rebbe says, see in l'kuti diburim there, Shatakiyah harishayna de Chodesh Elul. That the first tekiah of Chodesh Elul, which this year will be on Sunday morning, He Haida al Psichas Share Harachamim Kechodesh Elul, is a notification of the opening of the gates of mercy of Chodesh Elul, Upsicha Shari Harachamim Harehi Hamshacham Milmaila. And the opening of the gates of mercy has to be an overture that's made above. Now we're going to go to footnote 14. Let's go back in the Sikha just to see. The Rebbe says it's understood that the Isarusa de la Ela that comes after our Isarusa de la Tata is higher, way higher than the original Isarusa de la Ela that prompted our original Avodah. Footnote 14. Isarusa de la Ela hanim sheches acharei kdimas Isarusa de la Tata beis madregas. In the Isarusa de la Ela that is prompted by our Isarusa de la Tata, there are two levels. So effectively, the Rebbe is going to teach us three levels, is referencing three levels of Isarusa de la Ela. There's the original Isarusa de la Ela that serves as the catalyst for our Isarusa de la Tata. Then there's Isarusa de la Ela that is prompted by our Isarusa de la Tata. And in that higher Isarusa de la Ela, the Rebbe says, now there's two levels. Aleph, the first level is Hamisayeres Alidei Isarusa de la Tata. There's a level of the overture above, of the arousal above, that is aroused by our work here. The Gam Befchinazu Yesh Maila al Hisarusa de la Ela Shekoidam Hisarusa de la Tata. And this, as has already been said, is more elevated than the original Hisarusa de la Ela. Why? Kihi Bechinas Pnimis. Because this comes from an innermost level of the Eibishter Elisha Pnimi Zu, he Befchinas Tachtoina Asher Hisarusa de la Tata Magia Lasham. It's true, like the Rebbe said in the Pnim, in the Sikha so far, that this is a higher level because it comes from the Pnimius. But the Rebbe says, but in the Pnimius, this is a lower level of the Pnimius. And this is a level of the innermost aspect of the Eibishter that can be affected by our overtures. Bays, but now there's a higher level. The higher level, Hanim Sheches Mitzad Atzma. This is a level that of effluence that flows of its own volition. However, it's true that the Maisa Tachtonim, that anything that we do below cannot pull on this higher level of Pnimius, but this higher level of Pnimius can only shine, it can only rest, it can only make itself felt after our work in this world is complete.
Is it like opening a faucet? Like you don't have any control about what's coming out of the faucet, but your work below opens the faucet? I don't know if that's a silly
You could say that, or you could say like this. The Rebbe explains in Sichos that the difference between mitzvah aseh and mitzvah leis aseh. Mitzvah aseh is something we do. So that's like you light a candle. A mitzvah leis aseh is an inaction, right? But that's like opening the curtain to let in the sun. Now, the fire of the sun, the light of the sun, is always going to eclipse a candle. So, yeah, I think your metaphor of opening the faucet can also work. Yeah, that there are things that we can only kind of get out of the way. We can only like finish what we have to do, and then we allow the real hamshacha to come. So to review, there's an original Isarusa de la Ela. This original Isarusa de la Ela prompts Isarusa de la Tata. The Isarusa de la Tata prompts two levels of Isarusa de la Ela. one that comes from the lower level of Pneumius of the Eibishter's light, and one that comes from a higher level. Now, the one that comes from a higher level, we can't reach it. There's nothing we could do. But when we finish everything we can do and must do, then that higher level is able to flow and manifest itself. Ubechina zu, hi bechina pnimia shel bechinas elyoina. And this aspect is the higher aspect of the innermost aspect of the Eibishter. Asher ein yisrusadul tata magas l'sham. And nothing we do can actually reach that level. V'yesh leimar asher bechinas ha'or hanimshach al yidei ha'avodah de elul avodas hatshuva he kemoi bechinas habeis hana. And we should say that the light, the celestial light that is pulled forth through the avodah of Elul, the avodah of tshuva, is this second higher level of the pneumius of the or of the Eibishter. Now we're going back to the Sikha in the paragraph beginning with Hagam. The Hagam shenasinas hakoyach labeidis danila doidi he is galus yud gimel midas harachamim shebechodesh Elul. And although we have learned that the possibility to do our avodah of ani l'doidi, the catalyst for this is the revelation of the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim in the Chodesh of Elul. Hinei ma'acha shelachol davar zmanoi hakavu aloi shehu tchilase b'karei v'hazman dahamshachas yisrosa del ele bechlal hu b'pesach. And now the Rebbe is answering the question of why would the Frierdiker Rebbe speak about Elul on Pesach. So he says like this: once you understand that the koyach to do the avodah of Elul actually does come from Isarusa de La'ela, although it's true that Elul is all about Isarusa de Latata, but once we understand that there can be no Isarusa de Latata before there's Isarusa de La'ela, then we circle back to understand why the Frierdiker Rebbe spoke about this on Pesach, because we said Pesach is all about Isarusa de La'ela. Now, Pesach, the Rebbe is going to explain, is Isarusa de La'ela Bechlal. It's the general energy of Isarusa de La'ela, a subsidiary of which is the Isarusa de La'ela that prompts the work of Elul. So let's go back into the paragraph again. Hagam shenasinas hakoyach la'avodah danila doidi he is galus yud gimel midas harachamim shebechodesh Elul. Although it's true that the specific subsidiary of Isarusa de La'ela that prompts our Isarusa de Latata in Elul is the revelation of the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. But hinei ma'acha shelachol davar zmanoi hakavu aloi shehu tchilasa v'yikari v'hazman da'hamshachas Isarusa de La'ela bechlal hu b'pesach. But because the general energy of Isarusa de La'ela and the hamshacha, the flow of that energy is Pesach, Kinal, as we explained. Masha Enkin, in contradistinction, Elul Shemitzat Atzmai, whose man avoidem lemata l'mayla. Elul is all about from below upward. Kain ugam b'negel Isarusa de La'ela be'elul. Sheshayresh hamshachasa hu b'Pesach. And so, even though we have located al pi Chasidus the specific conduit of Isarusa de La'ela that prompts the work of Ani L'Doidi and Elul, which is the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, but that comes from something more general, and the more general koyach of Isarusa de La'ela comes down on Pesach. V'hainu shePesach hu hazman d'Isarusa de La'ela. Pesach is the time of Isarusa de La'ela. Ba'ofen klali, in a general way. Umizeh ba'os achar kach hamshachos haprotiyos b'chol inyan bizmanoi hakavua. And then from Pesach, from the inyan of Isarusa de La'ela, that generally flows into this world on Pesach, then subdivide subsidiary streams of Isarusa de La'ela for each particular time. And if you look at footnote 18, the Rebbe says that this is reflected in the fact the Zehu Masha Pesach Hu Rosh Hashanah L'Regolim. And that's why Pesach is called the Rosh Hashanah of the Shalosh Regolim, the three pilgrimage festivals. Ki haroish koilel by klolus hachayush beguf, because the head is where the general vivifying energy for the body resides. And from the brain flows the particular differentiated energy that each aver, that each limb needs. Now we're back in the next paragraph in the Sikha. And therefore, the saying of the Sikha about Shabbos Mevorchim Elul, and what Shabbos Mevorchim? Shabbos Mevorchim is that island in time which is saturated with the general energy that the whole month will need. Ubichlalam, and therefore included Gam Hamshachas Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. Also, the specific energy Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim was already in this world on Shabbos Mevorchim, this past Shabbos. But when did the Frierdiker Rebbe speak about this? B'Chag HaPesach, on Pesach. Now take a look at footnote 19. And look what the Rebbe says with just a few words. V'lachein amiras hasicha, the Rebbe says, and therefore, the teaching of the Sikha, the saying of the Sikha in the footnote, hahamshacha milmaila al yidei nasi hador. When a Sikha is said, it's a spiritual effluence that flows into this world through the Nasi Hadar. And on the word kulay, kolin yonei achaydesh kulay, the footnote 20, the Rebbe says that Shabbos Mevorchim is the time where all the general things that are needed for the whole month come down. So look at 20, ki Rosh Chodesh kolel kol yemei hachodesh, because Rosh Chodesh, just like the head of a body, and just like the head of the year, right? Over and over, we learn that the brain has the energy for the whole body. So Rosh Chodesh has the energy for all the days of the month. Shalachein nikra Rosh Chodesh. That's why it's called the head of the month and not Rishon LaChodesh, the first of the month. Or b'Shabbos Mevorchim is Baruch Hu B'Tor Rosh Chodesh, and on Shabbos Mevorchim you bless the Rosh Chodesh. Noisep al Asher HaShabbos. My name is Baruch Kula Yomim. On top of the fact that we know that all the days of the week are always blessed by the Shabbos that comes before it, but Shabbos Mevorchim has the koyach to bless all the days of the month. And in a different Sikha, the Rebbe says that the truth of the matter is that Shabbos Mevorchim Elul blesses all the days of the year. Why? Because we famously don't have a Shabbos Mevorchim Tishrei. So Shabbos Mevorchim Elul blesses Tishrei, and Tishrei is the Hamshacha for the whole year. So the Hamshacha for the whole year is already found in Shabbos Mevorchim Elul. When I learned the Sikha, I said to my husband, such a shame that this wasn't last week's Sikha, but, so I could feel Shabbos Mevorchim or understand more properly. I feel like it's always the case. The Rebbe used to talk about the Yom Tov, like a Matzah Yom Tov. The Rebbe would explain the enormous Hamshachis. Tzippa says, I just said the same thing. Yeah. Gimel. Al pizem muvanim arbas henyanim shenemru b'sicha hanal. So now the Rebbe circles back and he says, and now that we understand a little bit about what we're talking about, why it was said when it was said, and what is the greatness of Shabbos Mevorchim Elul, now we can appreciate the four terms that the Frierdiker Rebbe used in describing Shabbos Mevorchim Elul. He wasn't just, given to flowery alliterations, although, his writing is quite beautiful. You see in the Kutei Diburim, it's very, very descriptive, and it's very, very flowery. But the Rebbe says, but it's never just that. Betir Shabbos Mevorchim Elul, when the Frierdiker Rebbe explains Shabbos Mevorchim Elul. Shebechlalos nechlakim hem l'shnei sugim. So the Rebbe says generally you can take these four expressions and subdivide them in two. In one category is ha'aras u'behiru ziv hashemesh. That's bechelek harishon. There is the sunshine. There is the beauty and the luminous shine of the sun. That's one. And the Rebbe here again quotes the words that Rivky said, "Hagam she'adayin hayazeh yom boher sheboi zorch hashemesh." That although it was still a bright day in which the sun was shining, so that's one category. And the other category goes chiluf ha'avir, that the temperature of the air is already changing. Hagashas hareach shel Elul, you could feel the smell, you could sense the smell of Elul. V'ruach hatshuva asher nashva, and the winds of tshuva that are blowing. That's the second category. Why? Ki or v'ziv hashemesh nimshach milmayla, because the light and the rays of the sun, those come forth from above. Umashmas hadavar pnimius hanyanim. And what does this mean on the innermost level? Hi hahamshacha v'haha'ara mishemesh havaya. This is the way in which the sun, which serves as a metaphor for Hashem, ki shemesh u'magen Hashem Elokim, this is the way in which that the light and the rays stream forth. Hanimsheches b'chodesh Elul kiprat min hamshacha haklalis b'chodesh Nisan kinal. So this is a reference, the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim, to the very specific hamshacha of Isarusa de La'ela that is different from the more general Isarusa de La'ela that comes into this world of Chodesh Nisan, as we said above. The Gimel HaYonim HaAcherim and the other three descriptive terms, Mivatim es Ha'ayres Hanivraim Lemata, those describe the way in which the creatures, those who were created below, respond to the light and the rays of the sun, as they are affected by the light from Hashem. Dalet. So here the Rebbe is going to explain this. Regarding the arousal of those below that comes and reciprocates to what is beamed at us from above. My holy father-in-law, the Rebbe says two things. Aleph, Reichai shel Elul hechol kvar liyos morgash. The smell of Elul can already be sensed. And the second thing is kvar nashva ruach shel tshuva, and the wind of tshuva is already blowing. And the Rebbe is going to explain this soon, but in case you're wondering what happened to the third thing, the Rebbe is going to say that the chiluf ha'avir, that the temperature, the atmosphere is already changing, is an intro to these other two things. He's going to explain it in a moment. But first, let's explain this. Ubir hashaychas dereach v'ruach le'elu ule'inin hatshuva. And now let's explain the connection between smell and the wind to Elul and to the inyan of tshuva. Iker hatshuva hu k'may shekasuv v'haruach tashuv el Elokim asher nisana, I think it is. In Koheles, Shlomo Melech says that what he explains what's tshuva, that the spirit of man should return to God who gave us that spirit. Hainu, this means she'ikar inin hatshuva, the main aspect of tshuva, hisroimimus ad the b'chinas ruach, is the elevation of ourselves to the aspect of ruach, shemashmu'usa binyanenu hidaga shelamayla mi'or. And regarding what we've been explaining here, this is a level that is higher than light. So you see what the Rebbe is doing here? The sun is the Sarusa de la Ela, but our tshuva, which is the Sarusa de la Tata, brings our ruach to a higher level. She'az nifala inin de tashuv elikim. And then returning to Hashem can actually be effectuated. V'zois Ramaz Choik Merichami Admor B'Tevas Ruach Shel Tshuva. And this is what the Frierdiker Rebbe was alluding to when he said the wind of Tshuva. Lefisha Ikar HaTshuva Elul Hu Bechinas Ruach. Because the main thing of Elul is highlighting this aspect of Ruach, of Ruchnius, of our spirit. You could say that all of Yiddishkeit and all of our Avodah is about reminding ourselves that we're not bodies that happen to have souls, that we're souls that have bodies so we can navigate this dir b'tachtainim. So the Rebbe is saying that when the Frierdiker Rebbe said Ruach HaTshuva, this is what he kind of wants to highlight, that Elul is a time where the Ruach has to take front and center. If it's not already like that the whole year, this is the time. And once we understand this, we understand the connection between scent, between the smell and Elul. The main avodah of Elul, of ani l'doidi, I am to my beloved, is of course tshuva. But what happens through that? Through this, we merit the spirit of Mashiach. And we're taught that the essence of the revelation of Mashiach, hu b'fchinas reach, it comes specifically through the element of smell. K'moshe Kasov, like it says in Yeshayahu, Hashem. He will smell the truth. Mashiach will be able to discern things through the sense of smell. Uperish Chazal, and the Gemara Sanhedrin explains, Sheyivchan dafka be'inyan moirach v'adai. He will dafka be able to discern what is holy and what is not, and different things that will have to be sorted out, because as you know, we're kind of a jumbled hot mess right now. So Mashiach's going to have to sort out a lot of things. And the Gemara says, based on this pasuk, that Mashiach will do this through, he will judge through his sense of smell. He will smell and he will know definitively what's what. Hey. And as a preparation for these two aspects, the ruach and the reach, ruach shel tshuva, b'chinas reach shel elul aydei tshuva, oimer chayk merichami admor b'sichasei ha'avir kvar is chalif, that the ear, that the atmosphere is changing. V'harem is b'zeh. And what is he alluding to in this? B'tzarchei ha'chayim shel adam yeshnam kama sugim. When it comes to the necessities of life, there are a number of categories. Bayis logor boy, you need a house. Beged lil boish, you need clothing. Lechem lechol, you need food to eat. Mayim lishtais, you need water to drink. Va'avir l'neshima, and you need air to breathe. You need oxygen. Shekol echad mehem nachutz mechaver. The Rebbe says, each one is more important than the one before. And in footnote 32, the Rebbe says that this is referenced in one of the Maimurim, Mayim Rabim, that the way the world works, that what is most necessary is cheapest. So the most necessary thing is oxygen. We don't pay for it. What's most expensive are the things we need least. We call them luxury items. Okay. So the Rebbe says like this. Begadim nechutzim yoser mibayis. You need clothes more than you need a roof over your head. Eichel nachutz oid yoser. Food, you need even more than you need clothing. Yoser mizeh, and more than food, hashtia, you need to drink. V'hanachutz mikulam, and what is most necessary from all? Avir l'neshima, oxygen to breathe. Shehi hechrachiyus t'midis, and the air that we need to breathe is a constant and unremitting need. Because without oxygen to breathe, without air to breathe, we can't exist even for a short amount of time. The kevan shetzarach adam ba'avihu gadol kol kach. And because this is such a great need, and we breathe normally, regularly, we breathe constantly. Hare move on. Therefore, it's understood. And therefore, this is something, the efficacy of oxygen, the necessity of breathing is felt by every person constantly. And this is what the Friedrich Rebbe was alluding to when he said that the ear in Lubavitch is already changing. The very most necessary thing for living has already changed in Lubavitch. In other words, of necessity, there are going to be different levels in terms of the Isarusa Dilatata. There are going to be people whose tshuva is more intense than other people, and so on and so forth. But ha'avir mischalif. But the beginning of everything is the prelude to the ruach and the reach, which is the response to the sunny day, right? Because that's the original, the Sarusa de la Ela, is that the sun is shining. That is going to prompt the Sarusa de la Tata, a ruach, and that's going to lead to a reach, to a higher level. But the prelude to this is that the atmosphere is changing, that the ear, the very oxygen that you breathe, already changed. Mischalif. This is something so beautiful here. Yes, oxygen is the most necessary thing, but it's also the thing we put the least amount of thought process in. With Hashem's help, if we can breathe spontaneously, we give it no thought. I mean, food we have to prepare, and clothes you have to buy, and a house you're either paying rent or mortgage or whatever, but it takes a lot of effort. The air you breathe spontaneously, Eina derish tircha. So the Rebbe says that's what the Friedrich Rebbe was talking about. That from Shabbos Mevorchim Elul in Lubavitch, the ear was saturated with an energy. You didn't even need tircha. You didn't have to put in any effort to feel it. And it was also a situation where everybody knew that it was shayach to them, it was relevant to them, and it was necessary. And that it vivifies each one. Kol neshama, each person, each living thing, b'chol neshima, with every breath. Like we say from Tehillim, Kol haneshama tahalel ka halaluka. That every neshama praises Hashem. In this respect, every neshama has to take in the breath, has to take in the avir hamischalef, the atmosphere in Lubavitch that was pregnant with this teshuvah, this energy of teshuvah. One thing that I just wanted to share that kind of came at me, there's so many things here, but one thing is that maybe we could say that there's a lot of things that as women fall under our jurisdiction, as it were. The ruach and the reach, but I think the most important might be the avir hamischalef. Like we really are in charge of the general atmosphere in the house. So when the mother's happy, when she's positive, when she's upbeat, then the whole house, or the whole Chabad house, or the whole company, or the whole whatever changes. And then everything else can flow from that. Love to hear other people's thoughts. Anything people want to say?
Hi. I just had one question. Actually, I have a lot of questions, but one. On this third level that you were talking about early on, with the response from Hashem responding to us from, do we ever really enter that space? Or do we really remain on the second level? Because you made the statement that it happens after we've completed our work. Is that something we really experience here?
If I'm understanding correctly, we don't enter into either of the spaces. It's about what our work can arouse to flow down into this world.
I see.
We can't enter into the essence of the Eibishter. But there's a lower aspect of the innermost light of Hashem that we can prompt through our Avodah.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a higher level that's prompted not through what we do, but when what we can do is done.
So it is, I had the same question. I had a question on the same idea because so it is affected by our work. Because if it's done, it means that we have to, we do in order for it to be.
That's why I brought the example of the mitzvahs aseh and mitzvahs lo aseh. Yes, they're both affected by our work, but in a different way. That's why a mitzvah lo aseh is higher than a mitzvah aseh. Because it can affect, it can prompt, it can stimulate a higher level. But it's dafkin what we don't do, as it were. But in choosing not to do that, it's an overturn on our part of a different kind.
Right. So it's different, but it is dependent on our work.
Yeah.
Rivky.
Yeah, Esther. That's Esther, right? I think
Yeah.
I recognize you. Yeah.
Well, I am so busy because I'm leaving in an hour. So, but I just wanted to, can't we, maybe this simplifies it, but it's about relationship. The awareness of what the Eibishter does for us. You know, when we're born, we're complete. All the gifts the Eibishter gives us, the talents, it's all on our Rusa de Le'ela. I mean, it all comes from above.
Sure.
Everything that we have to go on with life. How do we return that relationship? So it's how we return that relationship. So it's in any friendship, in any sibling, in any parent-child, parent in spousal. How you return that relationship now determines what comes back.
Yeah.
And no matter what comes back has to be at the level you can handle. But at its source, there is something much deeper. Isn't that true, you as a mother?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is right. I think it might be a little bit of a stretch, an oversimplification to say it's mamish like this in our interpersonal relationships in this world, because saf kol saf, you know, we're talking about very dakastic and yanim here, and stimulating is Rusa de Le'ela on the highest level of the ar pnimi of the Eibishter, that, you know, so I think there comes a place where we cannot easily draw parallels to other relationships, but generally speaking, yes, there is always this biofeedback loop in our relationships. There's no question about it. Esther, bist gewann sei stimmt?
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
yes. I'm sorry. I'm just so busy. But
Okay.
my point is that in order, for me anyway, this way it works personally, that for me to understand it, I have to apply it in a simple form, you know, I have to apply it in a simple form and then move it out, of course, to a point where it's Eibishter and it is much more refined or much more holy or whatever. But to understand it, maybe when we start at a simple level, understanding relationship, the give and the give back, and apply that, and then move higher from that, we understand the Sarusa de Le'ela, Sarusa de Tat in a much better way.
Yeah, I hear. Thank you. I want to wish everybody a good Chodesh, because the next time we learn, it will already be in the month of Elul. So we should all be gebenched with a Ksivach Simateva, Shanateva Masuka. The Rebbe says after Tu B'Av, we already have to wish each other a good gebenched year. Everybody should receive what we need, what the Eibusher knows we need, and it should all be b'tayv hanir v'anigla. And Mashiach should come already now, mamash, because that's the main thing. Kol tov, wishing everyone a wonderful week.
Thank you so much.
Amen. Thank you very much.